The 1980s promised the future: robots as daughters, alien dads, holographic cops forged from neon light. But Weird 1980s shows that never should have existed reveals what happened when TV's wildest tech dreams crashed into budget reality. Imagine network executives greenlighting $1 million an episode glow-in-the-dark heroes, or filling living rooms with a child who's actually a stiff, dead-eyed android. For every sitcom hit, there was a surreal, awkward misfire. Productions where ambition outpaced reason, and the result was a generation raised on stories that made no sense, cost a fortune, and sometimes gave viewers nightmares. What made these bizarre shows possible? And why did so many flame out almost instantly? Network television in the 1980s had a thing for robots and aliens, especially if you could squeeze them into a family sitcom. Small Wonder, which ran from 1985 to 1989, introduced Vicky, the voice input child identicant, a robot daughter who could vacuum the living room, lift the family car, and deliver every punchline in a monotone that would make HAL 9000 sound lively. The show's budget was famously tight, clocking in at just $300,000 an episode, and it showed. Sets looked like leftovers from a school play, and Vicky's robot mannerisms were so stiff they made the family dog seem like a method actor. But somehow, this uncanny valley experiment lasted 4 seasons, getting dubbed into dozens of languages and creeping out kids worldwide. Out of This World took the premise even further. A teenager named Evie discovers she's half alien and can freeze time by touching her fingers together. Every week brought a new supernatural mishap, usually solved with some finger magic and a lot of canned laughter. The effects were pure 1980s. Think blinking lights and awkward freeze frames. But the show's surreal storylines and low-budget charm made it unforgettable for anyone who grew up watching. These sitcoms promised the future, but what they delivered was something closer to a fever dream. Proof that in the 80s, even a shoestring budget couldn't stop TV from aiming for the stars. ABC's Ottoman looked like the future, if the future was built out of reflective tape and 3M's best efforts. The show's hero, a glowing hologram named Ottoman, teamed up with a computer programmer to fight crime. But the real spectacle was the visual effects budget. Each episode ran over $1 million, making it one of the most expensive flops of its era. Producers borrowed visual tricks straight from Tron, lining Ottoman's suit and his Lamborghini with special tape that would bounce light back at the camera, creating that signature neon glow. The sidekick cursor could whip up a sports car or a helicopter out of thin air, but the effects budget couldn't conjure up an audience. Despite all the digital dazzle, Ottoman fizzled after just a dozen episodes, proving that in the 1980s you could spend a fortune chasing the next big thing, and still end up with nothing but a very shiny suit. NBC's Manimal, 1983. The pitch? Dr. Jonathan Chase, a wealthy professor with a British accent and a closet full of secrets, could transform into any animal, at least in theory. In practice, the effects budget only stretched to a panther and a hawk, and viewers got used to seeing the same Stan Winston transformation footage, episode after episode. The show lasted 8 episodes, most of which featured Chase writhing in agony while his hand turned into a paw, or his face sprouted feathers in glorious slow-motion close-up. Scheduled opposite Dallas, Manimal's ratings dropped faster than a hawk on a field mouse. NBC pulled the plug before Chase ever got to be a dolphin or a tarantula. Meanwhile, Misfits of Science tried to cash in on superhero team-ups with a bargain bin X-Men approach. The lineup included a rock star who could shoot lightning, a scientist who could shrink himself, and a telekinetic teenager played by a pre-Friends Courtney Cox. The special effects were ambitious, but the budget wasn't. Episodes juggled shrinking gags, sparkly lightning hands, and plenty of awkward banter, all in the name of science. Misfits of Science managed 1 season before the team was benched, but not before giving Cox her first taste of TV weirdness. If Manimal was a lesson in special effects overreach, Misfits proved that even with a whole squad of superpowers, you're only as strong as your budget. NBC's Voyagers promised to make history cool, but what it delivered was more like Quantum Leap for the book report crowd, minus the homework. The setup, Phineas Bogg, a time-traveling conman with a magic pocket watch called the Omni, teams up with a know-it-all kid named Jeffrey. Each week, they'd crash land in some random era, only to discover that, say, the Salem witch trials were happening 2 months after they actually ended, Or the Wright brothers were too busy fighting over a fictional girlfriend named Agnes to invent the airplane. The show leaned hard on its educational angle, right down to Jeffrey's closing PSA urging kids to visit their local library. But the history was so scrambled, even the Omni couldn't set it right. Voyagers lasted just one season, but became infamous for its wild inaccuracies and for the tragic on-set accident that claimed star John Eric Hexum a year later. In the end, it was less about teaching kids history and more about teaching them how not to cheat on a quiz. NBC's Mr. Smith, 1983. The premise? A talking orangutan with an IQ of 256 becomes a political advisor in Washington, D.C. If you're wondering how long you can stretch a one-joke show about a genius ape in a suit, the answer is 13 episodes. Ratings tanked almost immediately, and the only thing more awkward than the dialogue was watching a primate out-act half the cast. Merchandising hopes for Mr. Smith fizzled fast. No one wanted a plush orangutan with a briefcase. Meanwhile, Punky Brewster's animated spin-off took a different route, adding Glomer, a rainbow-colored gremlin with magic powers. Glomer could teleport Punky and her friends anywhere, turning a simple orphan story into a Saturday morning acid trip. The cartoon managed 26 episodes, but Glomer merch gathered dust on toy shelves. In the 1980s, if you could imagine it, someone tried to sell it, no matter how weird. Suzanne Summers' comeback vehicle, She's the Sheriff, ran from 1987 to 1989 and still manages to top worst sitcoms lists decades later. The premise, widowed mom becomes sheriff in small-town Nevada, might have sounded like a safe bet for syndication, but audiences weren't buying into the perky actress as a law enforcer. The show limped through 2 seasons before cancellation, leaving behind 48 episodes and a pile of critical takedowns. Meanwhile, NBC's Super Train remains the gold standard for expensive TV disasters. The network poured $10 million into building 3 massive train sets, hoping for Love Boat on rails. Instead, they got a ratings wreck that nearly bankrupted the network. Super Train crashed after just 9 episodes, proving that sometimes bigger budgets just mean bigger messes. Super Train cost NBC over $10 million in set construction alone, yet lasted just 9 episodes. An outcome mirrored by other high-concept, low-budget experiments of the 1980s. From Manimal's 8-episode run to Small Wonder's $300,000 per episode price tag, networks repeatedly gambled on surreal ideas with uneven results. The era's obsession with technology, seen in Audemann's $1 million per episode Glow and Out of This World's time-freezing teen, outpaced what visual effects could deliver. Despite these shows' short lifespans, some, like Misfits of Science and Voyagers, developed cult followings, while others, such as She's the Sheriff, continue to top worst of all time lists. Critics and ratings data confirm viewers often found the premises stranger than the execution. What remains unclear is how some of these concepts advanced past network approval, as internal memos from the period are still inaccessible. But the 1980s proved that not every big idea could survive on novelty alone. Today, their legacy lives on as a reminder that television history is shaped as much by its failures as by its hits.